Hi and welcome to the Grayscale Draw YouTube channel. Finally, the last video from this series. In this video I'm going to focus on the making of process of the character design. In the beginning stage I'll start with a rough sketch establishing the position and the pose of the two characters. One of them, the grandpa, I choose to put him in one knee on the floor in the front of the stove, and in one hand he has a piece of wood that he's going to put into the fire stove. It will be the image that I'm going to detail. The secondary character that represents the grandma, she is sitting on the drawery chest and she crochets or she's doing something with her hands, but at this moment I don't know quite sure what. At the end she's going to hold a sock made of wool and some crochet hooks. After this rough process, where I establish the position and the pose of the characters, I'm going further into the next step, which is the main character design process. But I'll keep in mind that early phase. That being said, I started to detail the first character, which is the grandpa. In this earlier stage, I'll draw the elevation of the characters. At first, I'll start with the frontal view, where I will determine the proportions and the basic features of him. Of course, that isn't going to be a realistic approach. It will be more like a caricature. And that's because it will match with the already finished room. When I'm done with the front view, I'll continue to drawing the side view. I'm going to use the first drawing as a guidance. So I'll make some reference lines from it that will help me to match it with the secondary view. This way I'm going to keep the main proportion of the drawings the same. So the position of the nose, the mouth, ears and so on will be aligned. As I just said, I started to draw the side view. I will need both of the views, the front one and the side one, because as you can see in the reference pose, which I draw at the beginning in the first rough sketch, I have to deal with a pose that we can describe it as a semi-profile. That's the reason why I had to draw the elevation of the characters, and of course this way I've understand it better. At this point, I'm not very satisfied with what's going on here, in particular in this area of the nose. Actually, the entire head has something odd. I have in my mind as a reference picture the image of a grandpa. I don't use any photo references, I only use the visual library in my head. I have in my mind that the features of an old man, I don't want to make him look like somebody in particular. I rather prefer a much more general look of the character. But of course, that I've overwhelmed the character with some personal characteristics. Now I continue drawing in both views, depending on what catches my attention. I do not focus on an individual view, I'm moving from one to another. If I modify a view, I adapt the changes to the other view and so on. I'm moving forward with both of them in parallel. As a brush, I'm using the same old brush that I was using to drawing the interior. What you see on the screen right now, it's a grid line that helps me to check very quickly if everything is lined up. If what we have on the right side is aligned with what we have in the left side and vice versa. I keep trying to detail and adapt the images, looking for a form that pleases me. I'm drawing also some construction lines that are going to help me understand better the volumes. This will be the main features of the character. I'm making a copy of the side view only to test a few facial expressions of the character. First one is a little bit grumpy. I continue to detail the clothing and the body. I'm adding a small pocket. I'm sketching very fast the pose of the character. I wanted to point out the fact that we are dealing with an old man with a hump in the back, slightly arched. Just to bring a touch of dynamism in this sketch, I'm going to make the character stepping forward, even if this has nothing to do with the final pose. I'm doing this just for the sake of the character study. So I'm moving to the next character of the scene, which is the grandma. If I choose to represent the first character in a more sharp edge line with a skinny look, very vertical, well, in this secondary case I'm going to balance that through forms that are more round. So this second character is made up of more simple round forms. I am exaggerating the forms and the proportions of the head. At first I draw only half of the face and then I mirrored it. Then I created a copy and I was trying different expressions. I emphasizing the eyes to obtain more expressivity out of them. I continued to detail also the body. Now back to Grandpa. I'm going to draw him in the pose that I was drawing at the beginning, but this time I'm going to use those 2D views to put together the final pose of him. So these front and side views are turning to be very helpful for this final exercise. The character design study saved me a lot of time that I would otherwise had spent without gaining a proper understanding of the character. I'm satisfied with the proportions, volumes and the expressivity of the 3D portrait. I'll continue to draw the body of the character, keeping in mind that first rough sketch of the pose. At first, for the body, I'm sketching simple volumes as beams and cylinders, and after that, I continue to add the clothing. Okay, we have the entire pose of the character. I'm going to put him in the final position and I'll erase the old sketch because we don't need it anymore. I'm moving to the next character and I'm going to detail it directly on the right position. At this time, instead of starting with the head, I'm going to start drawing the body at first. As well as in the previous case, I start constructing simple volumes, trying to have in mind the perspective of the new forms. I considered a funny and cute touch to draw the feet in such a way that they are not touching the floor. Then I continue to draw the portrait using, as you already know, those 2D views and trying some other expressions. Then I start to add colors for every piece of clothing and for the skin, of course. The process of the shading and color is similar to the one that I used in the color video, which is the previous one. Now, for every layer I have a material and a color. I created a new layer mask for the layer and I draw in grayscale the light and the shadows and the texture of the material. After this, I just pick a color and I add it with the bucket tool on the new layer, on which I choose the color blending mode. After this step, I go to the layer adjustment and only if it needs it, I choose to edit the color balance, the contrast, the saturation, or so on. That being said, I'll hope you enjoyed the rest of the process. Don't forget to leave a comment, to like this video if you enjoyed it, and of course to subscribe. Goodbye.